down overnight. And then as the flame starts to burn, the glass clears. You can see.
Yep.
Nice kind of.
Yeah, it's true.
Do that without catching your sleeves.
Actually, usually it's a, sort of choreography of this motion.
Kind of.
It's sort of as if I feel it in my own body. Like this vision I've seen so many times.
Is that
It's the
usually
wrong
how
cloth.
they do it in China as well?
Mm.
Sometimes the sleeve is like really long.
Yeah, yeah. Sort of, it's open like that.
Maybe that's the trick, is long sleeve.
I don't think that makes it easier. That's for symbolic purposes, not functional.
So, G-friend. What's the little guy that's often accompanying
T-bits.
T-pet? Yeah.
Yep.
You can't duck that one.
Anything coming up in last couple of weeks of practice, or today, or?
What's the put the question? The question is about silent sounds for the who run the shoe. Because I really like singing out loud more than doing it silently, but so you want to say anything about that, or?
About what you want?
Well, that's why everybody's here, isn't it? I mean, about me, not about you.
So the gentleness of the silent sounding allows for more subtle work, but also it's sort of a releasing rather than generating, gathering sound. So the silence of it supports that kind of subtle internal observation. And mechanism. Does that make sense and potentially fit your experience? Or I feel like we've talked about it where that,
We have.
but I mean where that particular aspect you connected to was part of your experience also.
I get, yeah, I mean, on one level I get it, but I like the feeling of the vibration
Mhm.
when it sounded.
Yeah, so maybe a good relationship to it for you would be to, make it quieter
You know, it's,
rather than all the way silent,
or
and just kind
start
of,
with the sound and then
or that pattern too, yeah. So each one is a little bit quieter.
and maybe over time then I will connect to it more. Because I think that's the thing, I don't feel that it is much a connection just jumping to the breath but no sound.
Mhm. Yeah, I think either the progressive one or finding the level of a little bit of sound where you can feel the vibration but also be moving toward kind of subtler versions of that.
I have a memory of sitting on the dock at the Tierkins Pond,
Mhm.
which is sometimes not far from here. Constant.
Magic Dock.
And our dog sitting next to me, and Julie swimming in the pond, and as soon as I started doing 3 sources on the edge of the dock, by the time we got to shoe, the dog has gotten up and run all the way around the pond and gotten in the water and started swimming, which he never did otherwise. That was very interesting
Yeah.
kind of energy happening with that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that was, but it was, the sound, not the, at that point we hadn't started doing it soundly.
Mhm.
And so I still have a nice association there too. With
Sure.
the power of the forms.
Mhm.
Although I remember joking with you that it may have just made him nervous enough that you went to go and save Mom in the middle of the pond because he was a nervous guy.
No, I think he was just activated by it without qualification. It was just pure.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, it's like when you see the dog run, trotting down the street, and that dog knows where it's going. It's, it's definitely got a plan. It's acting out the plan.
Yeah.
But are you, I guess then the question is, as you are trying to work with the form and moving energy, that felt like it was moving energy in a way that's different from doing it silently, but should what you're trying to encourage the feeling of that when you're doing it silently, or is that a
So those two are more releasing, and so
that's
one of the reasons to do it silently is not to drain, and so at 3 repetitions you're not really in danger of overly draining, as opposed to draining resources as opposed to letting go extra things, entanglements and such. Um, but you wouldn't want to do 36 soundings of those unless you had some like dense illness to release. Um, so there's there's accumulating energy, there's releasing energy, and there's moving energy. If you practice it silently, then you don't have to think about any of that. Everything will just happen as it happens, harmoniously. The process is in balance as it goes. If you use it with sound, it's more of a therapeutic approach, which is okay, but requires a different kind of attention to make sure you're not draining. But at 3 repetitions, you're not in danger of draining.
With the shift towards winter and changing patterns of not gardening, and so transitioning from very intensive physical labor to almost no physical labor, I felt quite a strong urge towards stillness. But I'm not sure whether or not to be wary of that as too sharp a transition into being static. Whether the settling is actually a kind of stasis that, with being seated more often and just generally moving less, kind of compounding that in the practice. I mean, feels nice, but also sort of in the way that maybe it can be kind of nice to fully slouch or fully release after an intensive period of activity.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there's a way to navigate that, or to get a sense of if there is such a thing as too still in a given circumstance.
So I would navigate it just the way you are, and by asking, it's the right question, and the answer is through your experience, and I think with the amount of experience you have, you already have a sense for whether some gentle movement is the right thing, or whether in stillness the rivers and oceans are robust, or whether it's kind of withering. So that's kind of what you're, it's subtle stuff, but sometimes we have resistance to movement, and it's because we need to move, and sometimes we have disinterest in movement, and stillness is the natural thing to do at that time. And so that's what it is to be an adept, is to pay attention to those questions and allow experience to inform the answers.
Cross-country skiing's been really great, but
I can imagine. I mean, it's actually been very nice to be homebound. Made me realize that I've probably spent like maybe 10 days this year just not leaving the house in total. A lot of going out to other sites and other places, and then spending long periods of time there doing physical activity. So I haven't like felt a strong urge to be moving through the landscape again. But I think that'll start to balance out.
I have a kind of laziness about all the gear to get on to go outside. And, coming back in all wet, drying off all the gear. And also a kind of draw to hearth and warmth and cozy and that kind of thing. And so, of course, August wants to get out. And so when he does, I'm always, and sledding, I'm like, but then he gets me out there sledding, and it feels great to be out, and it's a blast. So,
and the heart feels even more amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
Gravity is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think they were harshing your mellow, but it's so nice to sit and be quiet.
Well, they're not exclusive. It's a lot of minutes in the day, as it turns out.
Especially when it gets dark at 4 o'clock.
Right.
I went for a moonlit ski last night, right up to with the sunset, and the moon came up,
The
and
moon was nice.
just kept going for a while because it was so incredible.
Yeah.
Just everything was lit, and all the moon shadows were on the snow. It was amazing. It's like flying. Yeah, I'll try to get down to the fields. And then I went back up to the woods, which was pretty magical. We also fell a whole bunch of times. Twilight.
Intentionally?
Yeah,
or?
got like kind of slick, icy almost, and just like falling and laughing over it. It wasn't all like moonshine and silence. There's quite a bit of silliness too.
Once the snow falls, you can never tell if people are falling intentionally or not.
I know, right?
Sort of like,
Especially once you fall a few times, it's kind of fun.
right. It's always so inviting.
August was so eager that we started sledding in the first few hours that first night.
Yeah, I noticed
the grass was still, yeah.
I was like, when did they go?
Yeah. But also, there's no cushion. We, for the first time, we're using this hill behind the house because I guess I hadn't weed whacked it other years or something. But there's some rocks and stumps along the way, and so first snow of the season, first sled, and he comes in and he bruised his tailbone and was in pain for sledding the next few days. I thought it was going to prevent him. But
Yeah.
that wasn't one of the possibilities. That image of the trash in the ocean, he said this morning, and I thought it was so interesting, is kind of trash that no one threw away. He's,
That's actually what he said?
That's, yeah, it was,
That's really interesting.
I think I said risen or something. He didn't say risen, but rose up or something, but almost verbatim what I said in practice. But trash that no one threw away, rising to the surface. It's really interesting.
The idea of us picking up on other people's energy and stuff that they're not dealing with or that's messy.
It's a good point. I
Tend to be
didn't
very open to that stuff. So
yeah, he certainly is. I didn't actually hear it that way. I'm sure that's true. Also, a useful way to see it. I was sort of felt like unintentionally, like a kind of karma, like association, like it comes from other times, that isn't a result of this choices and actions in this life, but trash that no one threw away a long time ago. But that's my extrapolation. It fits the way you're seeing it very clearly also. The other part, too much dad sharing probably, but he said he had a nightmare, which was the origin of this discussion, and he said it was like his pillow was a book of snakes.
That's a nightmare.
It's like with the snake thoughts.
I had a nightmare 2 nights ago about a flying viper that was outside the window, and people kept opening the window, and it would come in and sort of occupy the space around your head. Book of Snakes sounds like a little bit more alarming, just given the sheer quantity, but
I think snakes are a symbol of creativity or life force. And it's like considered a good thing in Jungian context.
I guess both entail the possibility that you can open and close something to establish your relation to the snakes. Yeah.
Monica woke me up telling me a dream this morning about swimming with moose. It was a baby moose that she had to take care of. This little pink moose with a really big head that couldn't swim. So she was on the shore, and the moose mom was really worried. And she's like, "That's okay. Just don't want your moose to be in the water. The water's really cold." And then she woke up.
Don't tell that one to Mom. Just say we're in a good place. I know she wants grandchildren, but no, they have
Interspecies.
Well, you're talking about dreams, and I was thinking about August when I woke up. I had a dream about a soccer player, but most of my dreams about soccer, I'm in the dream as the one playing. This one I was more either observing, I don't think it was even coaching. And it was after a game, and this one player had been playing very nicely, and we were sitting somewhere either on a bench or on a bus, going back somewhere after the game. I said, "You had a really good game," and the young person said, how can you say that? And my response was, well, you didn't score a lot of goals, but you had 3 assists during the game and you played really well. The striking thing about the dream was that the person had 3 eyes. So I was going to kind of check August out and see if it related to his soccer playing at all. And this one big eye right in the middle of the upper left ear. I don't know. Not sure what to make of it.
Well, there it is. Meaning?
He did. He played very well, I thought.
Going back to practice,
Yeah.
you were talking about sounding or not sounding, and I was having the opposite experience and have in the past where the sounding can actually be a little bit distracting from the energetic experience, the inner alchemy experience. And sometimes I get caught up in that, How is it sound? How is it sounding? And how is that affecting my body? Whereas when silent, like that was very satisfying today. Just there was this glow after that. I was just thinking it's an interesting thing. The vibration is also powerful, but even at home, it sometimes feels disruptive or something.
If there are other people around, is that different as opposed to if you were by yourself?
Yeah. But even by myself, even by myself, it almost feels like a different. Well, it depends on how I can be almost be too loud or something for myself.
Yeah, so I feel that way with other people around, particularly, it's just, mom and me, for example. But, yeah, that's interesting. Now, what about doing the whole thing separately? You ever do that?
I do. I usually I either do it subtly, the ones that are usually out loud. I guess I only really do it fully silent if I'm in a situation that requires that. Not to wake somebody up or whatever.
I'll sometimes do it right at the level where there's a lot of vibration, but there's not a ton of sound.
Mhm.
So as long as I can key into that, that still seems to work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has experiencing this, but just with the darkness being around a lot more, and less so since the snow has been out, but just finding center and brightness takes longer for me this time of year. I feel like there's a tendency to be, there's like a sleepiness or sluggishness, or just things take longer. It's like the trek up the mountain is a longer trek. It's just been my experience lately.
Try. If you can do it without waking Monica, you can try shaking beforehand to
Yeah.
jostle things free.
I've been doing some breath holds.
Yeah,
It's a silent way to
yeah.
kind of build that energy right away.
Mhm.
shaking unfortunately makes the whole tiny house
Yeah.
shake. Whereas when it's warm out, I go outside
Yeah.
and shake, you know. But that, winter doesn't work. So
What if you open the skylight and stand up? You guys haven't seen this, but when we were building it, we at some point in the sleeping loft, Zephyr put a great big skylight in there. We were setting it in place, and Zephyr was standing up in the sleeping room. And it looked like something out of Alice in Wonderland. It's really looking glass.
or the old man in the shoe.
He'd eaten the mushroom that made you grow a lot.
That was actually the best the skylight ever was. I wish there was a way to just open it wide,
Yep.
stand up out of it.
There's no good way to have a hole in the roof.
Nope. Don't recommend it.
What led you into, as you've restructured and shaped our meetings and practice, we've moved away from shaking entirely? Is it just the amount of time, or is it more?
Yeah, just time and having to select.
Mhm.
I still do it in my own practice, and I still recommend doing it. And I miss doing it with you all.
Yeah.
But and we'll, it'll come around. But it would be in addition to what we've got right now, which already takes
Mhm.
75 minutes. So.
It's just-
That kind of thing, yeah. But it's extremely important, effective, powerful, and you could do only that and be sufficient. That plus sitting
Mhm.
or standing, but in the case being still. So it'll come around. We'll emphasize it at another time.
Mhm.
It is really helpful. The shaking really helps me a lot.
Great. I'm also aware that as we've introduced kind of tech, it does kind of take. I noticed kind of again for the first time during Ali's discipleship ceremony, which we did without tech. How that difference is very noticeable and supportive to those of us in the room. And it also means like it's complicated to do shaking, because and so those are sort of constraints and intrusions that are currently compromised. I'm not sure what the long term, because the people who aren't here are genuinely supported by these being available. So
The shaking kind of just messes up.
I'm just out of frame.
Just the bit.
Yeah.
Not the vibration.
That too, but you kind of, it's no big deal. I mean, it shakes everything, and it sounds louder than, so if you're following along, it can be a little bit of a, so I don't know what the threading of the needle is there, but
More tech, obviously.
No, that was my thought. So, well, you just need a GoPro, a wide fish angle lens, and
Yeah.
or back on the wall.
Second cameras.
Cameras above, maybe.
Yeah.
What are the things they have that, like, when you get basketball games, you know, our cables going back and forth over there.
Yeah.
Drugs. And,
People with drugs.
yeah.
They're very small.
They create a lot of vibration that is helpful.
You can see if August's third eye helps him to navigate the drone to the other room while he's practicing.
I'm sure you'd be very actually. Although I think you'd probably be tempted to do naughty things with it pretty quickly.
No doubt.
Bud's just a little too close to his dad's head every once in a while.
I think they have a bronchoscopy, and that involves a doctor sitting at a console, like a gaming console, to navigate, you know, what they're trying to image. And I'm not sure if I'm making this up or if he really said it, but when I first had that consultation with him, I think he said that he'd done a lot of gaming, you know, on computers when he was growing up, and so it's just sort of.
Because he's probably 24 or
Yeah,
something.
well, it's a young guy. I mean, it seems like probably, you know, close to your age. Well, it's probably younger.
It's probably his 20.
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta go through a lot of years at school. He could be prodigy. Anyway, you know, the last thing I remember was kind of like looking over and seeing him kind of like at this console, you know, getting ready to do his moves. So, you know, if Gavok is doing something like that, it'd be good, you know,
Yep.
career move.
Yep. I think ideally it would be a separate class for in-person and then a tech-only class, you know. But at the moment I have this one window in the week, so.
What's next?
I don't really know. Yeah. Reflecting on, you know, this kind of series structure that we've tried this year, spring and fall. And I don't think that's the final structure. So maybe kind of something like what this has become, this kind of weekly, where the discussion is open, but a weekly meeting and practice. And then a day or two workshop for sort of knowledge acquisition type stuff. There's some benefit to spreading it out over time, but I think that you know, that in a way you guys can spread it out over time, even if it's kind of one day download. Your relationship to it can be slow integration, and in that way you don't run into like, in spite of your commitment and interest, you can be here sometimes and you can't other times. And if it spans 10 weeks, then, you know, you and others like you are going to miss some. And so, and you know, so there's documents, and that's part of the reason, but.
The recordings help.
Yeah.
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 whatever
Yeah.
Have you thought about the content of the spring retreat yet, or
Um,
too soon to?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to base the teaching and kind of commentary and guidance on the Yin Fu Jing scripture that usually translated as the hidden talisman. I think really it's just the yin, as in yin and yang talisman. So that's my current thinking, and I'm kind of studying and preparing with that in mind. And it occurred to me just a second. So form-wise, we would either do this, or there's a form that I haven't taught that's a standing movement form that's enjoyable and powerful. That 5 dragons. So I'm considering that as well. What were you going to say? Have you considered, I think?
Yes, yes. If it would make sense to have us, reading anything
Beforehand.
preparation
Yeah.
Understood.
So yeah, I can forward some, based on what I think is the plan, it's Yin Fu Jing. There are a few resources to explore in that. This is just rinse the cup for a new tea round here.
This is fine.
Refusion.
Was there something in that text that sort of resonated at a certain moment?
Well, it does what the Jing, the scripture on clarity and stillness, does, but in a different way, and which is to say, it lays out the view and then prescribes an alchemical process. But it does it differently and, frankly, more mysteriously, and in ways that are interesting to explore and pick apart and look at closely. And they're really such efficient documents. Saying this is the structure, the the world, this is how you relate to it, this is how to behave given that understanding. Oh, there it is. All in a few hundred characters.
Thinking of if there were like a secret handhold and words you could say, and you could go up behind certain politicians. It would be like the thunderclap.
I haven't learned that yet. Frankly, it probably exists.
Well, I had an interesting experience talking to somebody who's, completely in the cult of Trump, and realizing the power, how powerful that brainwashing is that goes on, and I'm sure it's like the Fox News effect, but well, I'm not sure that's all of it, but that's certainly part of it. And I'm just standing there with, usually I'll have a comeback for anything if somebody wants to argue, but I was just realizing that there was absolutely nothing I could think of saying anyway.
Yeah, there's no
Would make a
shared.
difference.
There's no shared reality. Yeah.
This is like in a completely different universe. How do you make a connection?
This is a little strong. Beware.
Yeah, been thinking about that.
Yeah.
And my only response was to thank this person for being willing to talk to me about it.
Mhm.
Say, you just have to disagree.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're willing to say what you think.
Yeah. 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 It's an interesting phenomenon.
But if I knew how to use a talisman appropriately, maybe I could. No, I worry. I seriously worry for our world, given that it's a very significant number of people who are in that universe.
Know anybody who can buy Fox?
That's what I was thinking. No, that's all it was.
Yeah. It's true. Almost.
Maybe if you and Tom Sawyer got together.
Yeah. Be a good move. There's also a way in which it's kind of interesting, exaggerated in a way that we can see more clearly iteration of the distance between each of our realities, our own constructs.
Mm-hmm.
We feel as if we bridge them, and maybe there are degrees in which that's the case. But, we can never know, as a sort of reductive example of it, we can never know if the red I see is the red you see.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most challenging thing, is to listen to somebody and not be triggered by it, and try to really hear what they're actually saying to you. If they're really feeling based on what they're saying, even if it's rhetoric or,
Mm-hmm.
and then responding to that, and not to the rhetoric.
But it's hard to.
It's all language.
It's hard to, it's very hard to do.
That's watch more Fox News and you'll understand the language of that.
There's a bad idea.
But not being triggered,
If I turn to
and
not
not, not giving that person the satisfaction of the reaction is pretty powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah, trying to
Like
connect.
you're saying, thank you for expressing yourself, but also not basically taking the bait.
Mhm.
Makes them think. It's this awkward, unexpected moment for them where they thought they would get something back and there was nothing.
Right.
And then they have to kind of reconsider what they just said.
Hear their own words, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, my approach in all of the conversations that are, something like that,
Yeah.
and I seek them out as part of my political community stuff that I do. Is to try to make just human connections, topics that we share, like children or work or weather or whatever it is. At a minimum, I think it's productive to make people see the people they disagree with as still being human, as opposed to demonized caricatures. But, and then you question your own self. Are you doing that to them?
Mhm.
In this particular discussion I was having, was, gee, I don't understand, Phil, how you seem like a really smart person, so how come you don't really pay attention to the facts? And that just floored me, because I've been listening to all the people in the podcasts and whoever you listen to talking about, we're fact-based and they're not,
Right.
but they are thinking the same thing.
Right.
So how do you, it's really not by any means unique in articulating the gap in worldviews that are so extreme that we don't even have a common set of facts to work from.
Yeah. Lawrence Lessig has an essay in Politico currently, last day or two, making the argument that it's the media's responsibility, which I don't think he makes a very strong argument, but
Good luck with that.
exactly right. That they, both sides of the media have to, I can't quite recreate his argument, but present the other side,
Yeah.
Be open to each other, and this and that. But then, I'm a fan of his, but that was surprisingly, to my eye, unrealistic.
Mhm. When we were focusing on teaching, I'm trying to remember if we talked about that a little bit as a placeholder that for stems and branches, because we hadn't really delved into that, and particularly looking at the hexagrams.
What do you mean placeholder for stems and branches?
Well, just let's defer that until we've had a chance to learn more about things like stems and branches that are make a more complex
Defer
background.
talking more detail about the hexagrams.
Yeah.
Defer. Yeah. So not specifically. The the stems and branches help us expand our understanding of yin and yang of the five elements, and the ways in which they manifest in the world, and so those will help us with our intuitive accuracy, following the pointer of the pattern in the I Ching. So the I Ching is giving us a pattern where metal is under water, or earth is over fire, then our ability to see the way those patterns relate to our experience develops in its subtlety and kind of possibility. So they help in that way, but there isn't for the most part, there isn't something that we didn't talk about because we didn't know that stuff. There is a divination technique that is hyper-specific, that involves using the stems in relationship to each line and in relationship to a sort of sixth relationship structure of the lines, which is grandfather, father, or grandparent, parent, child, ordered hierarchical structure, and so all those things can work together to relate a specific result of a divination to a specific person in a specific time and place. And so they are an integrated system in that particular case. But I doubt I was referring to that.
Analogous to doing a birth chart and using that sort of technique.
In a way, yeah.
I guess in general, I'm kind of curious about, applications of, how you might apply, what you're learning about stems and branches to other activities.
Yeah, I would, first pass, I would apply it to correlating your observations of seasons passing and a particular day, and your relationship to it and your experience of it. And that's the way I use it most, and kind of enjoy the additional subtleties that it opens me up to, or questions like I mentioned, I've been mentioning for a while over the past year, that kind of overarching pattern of the time, and where it was warm and windy and sort of oscillating temperatures for the first half of the year this year, and the second half is excess metal, and sort of correlated that to the political environment and weather, and suggested that justice in some form would start mid-July. And so, in my sort of an example of how making that observation, reflecting on it, and then seeing how it actually plays out in reality. So it's interesting to me that so that actual transition is July 15th or 20th. From excess wind to excess metal, or excess wood to excess metal. And the Ukraine phone call was July 25th,
Right.
you know.
And there was one right around the 15th, too.
Was there? Okay. So, I wouldn't have known to say, is that in prediction, is that a justice action, or is that now I'm reflecting on whether that's an initiation or the beginning of this process that will now culminate as the year culminates in January. So January 20th. So that's interesting to me, So I wasn't sure whether to think, the sword comes down in July, or we have 6 months of sword coming down. But the impeachment started when the fall began, which is also metal, and so had the support of the seasonal energy. So that's interesting to me, And so, I'm 40-something, and I'm gathering this information as life goes by with this additional input of these kinds of patterns, and that's enjoyable and interesting, and helps me see it clearly, I think.
I had you one of the, testifying as a witness in one of the hearings. I don't know if it would have been better with the judiciary one to go along with the constitutional experts, or...
Yeah, but the media is funny around it. I did. I can't remember if it's in where it is. It might be Politico again, but a reporter being critical of the swiftness of the process, which is
There was one
up to
recently.
the House Democrats. It's up to them how to run it, and he was saying it should be longer so that more can be exposed and people can. So that didn't strike me as accurate, and also fits this sort of energetic climatic vision, wherein, to me, it needs to resolve in this part of the cycle, or it won't have the energy it needs to be accomplished. And so, but that's, kind of for me, that's on the level of a enjoyable speculation, and I wonder if I'm right, and we'll see. thought the staging of it all was skillful, in my view. Sort of theatrical presentation of it. Putting the reality TV president on a reality TV trial was insightful.
Yeah.
So our family's going to be in California for a couple of months to be with my parents and brother and his family. And John and Allie will be staying here. And so far we think running class or open sit or something. So we'll confirm, and I'll send an email out.
Yeah, I mean, that's good.
Yeah, so you know, you can lead it. You can just all be together. Whatever
Yeah.
you all feel is the right thing.
Yeah. I think holding to the format that we're all familiar with is good, and we thought maybe taking turns to read through a section of the scripture and sitting together and then having tea. Sounds great.
Okay.
So you need a little longer here to be able to do the thing.
I think we were thinking more decentralized.
I think the leading part, like, you know, I think
I don't know for Ira if it's hopeless or I'm approaching that.
it's all or nothing.
Maybe down the line, get some going.
Man, butt under your chin.
I think you can do it.
Think this would do it?
Yeah.
It's not very much there.
I think you should give it a try.
Maybe a lower one.
Don't be afraid.
And blip.
Blimp.
So I'll try to keep, you know, because holidays and such. So whichever, I'll give you'll let me know, and I'll confirm with an email to the list. That it's happening each week.
Where in California?
My family just moved in the past several months to Santa Barbara, to Montecito, up the hill, Santa Barbara. And, so we'll be there for a bit, and then in Ojai, nearby, kind of more mountainy, for a month as well.
My brother and I are going back there, I think, for a week in this winter.
Oh yeah,
Probably while you're there.
cool.
I'll reach out.
Yeah, love to see.
We're going to go continue our learning of paragliding.
Oh, nice.
Just
Would be so cool.
doing some mountain bikes with some people we know they're doing it. Some of the spots are in Ojai and some of them are in Santa Barbara Hills.
Kind of. Have you've done it there before? Is
I
it-
have done it.
Okay. I wonder if it's toward the water or toward the valley, toward the.
Oh, you mean in Santa Barbara? We did a small hill, and it's all of them are towards the water.
Okay, including Ojai. I mean, because Ojai has a ridge that overlooks the whole.
It does have a really, you want you want the wind to be coming toward, off
Off the water,
off,
makes
off
sense.
the water,
Yeah, of
even
course.
that far inland.
Yeah.
just more consistent, and that's how you get thermals,
Yeah.
proper thermals. If you get sucked through the other way, you're in bad shape. That's
Yeah.
the vortex.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. John and Allie gave August a kite that's a little bit like a kite surfing kite, or a little bit like a paragliding scenario. And so I was thinking to bring that but then I hadn't connected the dots there. We all would enjoy that as well. Yeah.
There's a contingent of wealthy guys that come up from LA and other places and live in Santa Barbara. But they have gotten really into kite surfing with hydrofoils. And so they have these high-tech, fully carbon hydrofoils that pay like £1, £2, and they have these tiny little kites now because they don't need a very big kite because there's almost no.
They're putting hydrofoils on a lot of the large racing boats as well.
Oh, I know, it's insane. I used to watch
As though they
them
weren't dangerous
in the
enough
bay.
already.
Oh my God. It's like the whole thing floats high above the water. But these little
Cutting all the dolphins in half. they're like sword blades.
They are.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Especially giant ships that are going incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Well above 30 knots at that point.
That's what we're going on to get to Nantucket. Right?
Good luck.
You guys going today?
Yeah.
Nice. For a couple days?
We're going to be till Friday, back Friday, assuming that the wind isn't too strong. That's happened before, an extra day or two, waiting for the ferries to start running again.
Oh, well.
Just go hang out with Tommy Hilfiger, take his, private helicopter with him back to mainland. One of the incredible wealth people that live on Nantucket. Just be a friend of one of them.
They can handle that kind of, sure. Well, I was relating to what I was saying, but sitting at home and being quiet. That's kind of where I'm at right now, so.
Yeah, I always have that opposing pull in this season that suddenly gets so busy and feels like it should be the opposite.
Last year I was just here and it was great. Really liked just spending the whole
Yep.
winter here. Felt very grounded and made all the transitions easier.
Yep.
It's hard to leave.
Yeah.
I keep trying to kind of establish a pattern, rhythm, a routine in the number of areas in my life right now. And then, I get pushed back. It's like, well, it's just, just this thing that we're doing now. And then you can just go back to, but this thing keeps happening, getting younger. And
There's always,
That's always a nice thing.
always something.
yeah, so. Crying out loud, I'm a cancer, give me a break. We like to stay at home.
You and my mom would see eye to eye on that. She hasn't.
She had cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She also hasn't, since they moved to Greece, she hadn't left a 5-mile radius in about a year
There you
until
go.
a month or two ago.
I like
And I
it.
think the whole week leading up to the whole week up to her leaving was like a succession of various catastrophes. Like she almost broke her ankle, and then this other thing happened. Took at least 2 weeks then on her return to restabilize.
Yeah.
In relation to a sense of, I know you've spoken about this before, and I've also looked at the Karen, is that her? On
Uh,
the Batsu?
It's on, which one?
The
It's on
Batsu.
some
you
sheet.
meant the consulting about
Is that- I think
Oh,
it's-
oh,
Karen Taylor.
Karen Taylor.
Yeah.
Card, yep.
But, you know, I've sort of glanced at it and don't have a clear sense of the relationship between the, like you're describing, a kind of excess of metal at a certain point in the year, in this year in particular, in this transition happening, how one orients to that in relation to one's own sort of constitution and tendencies. And if that's something that you sort of do and you take into account when you chart the broader cycles that are happening as well on an annual basis or longer.
So I just use it as part of the pattern that I enjoy observing and wondering about and seeing if I understand. Kind of. So, you know, in our little household microcosm, you know, how is my experience of this time different than Heather's? Is, you know, me is predominantly fire, and Yang fire, and Heather's predominantly yin wood, and August is yin metal, and so in that kind of general lens, I just observe and I'm interested in how these dynamics play out. And so it's possible we could have maybe it would make sense to have a one-day thing at the beginning of the year, which would be February. That lays out these patterns. And something you can pin on the wall and just kind of reflect on as the time goes by. And there's also, you know, understanding that we can all develop together. That is how this particular geography and latitude and this particular little valley we're in here, the Brown Mountain Valley, is, you know, its own character, which interfaces with these larger patterns, as do we. So that's all of interest to inform our learning, you know. So maybe we can do something like that. And it can be fun to do a Batsa, the 8-character, Ba 8 to the character. Astrology, calendar science, as per an individual class, workshop. It requires quite a lot of study and follow through to get any kind of footing, traction. And so, but if it feels like, you know, we have critical mass with those, meeting those conditions, we can do that as well. And I would follow that book as Will.
Yeah, I
Will
remember
lay out.
sort of glancing, reading through a few pages and then appreciating the degree of its complexity.
Yeah.
And recognizing that it would require that kind of consistency
Yeah.
to make something.
But if you're interested in that, I recommend some memorization of the stems and branches information. And the way I ran class, they're all pretty spacious and exploratory, which is hard to review because it just takes a lot of hours. But the two charts have the information, so if it's and Master Wu's cards are very helpful. They're available on his website or on Amazon. And memorize, try and write the character, all that kind of stuff. Would set the foundation to have productive discussions around how all these interact in time and space and humans. Let's wrap for the day. Give these guys a tour of the house systems. So they can, look after things. And get August to a birthday party. So. Thank you. It worked. I wasn't sure if it would. Fortunately, Zephyr helped me haul it down. When it was full, it was 25,000.